It's week 10 in the NFL, and after a crazy trade deadline and a crazier week 9, will the NFL finally start to make sense this week? Probably not. Grossi Posse Packer Nation. Welcome to an episode of Podcast, the podcast where you don't have to be a Packers fan, but it sure does help. I'm your host, Tom. Yeah, last week, not so good. Grossi, and today we are going to be breaking down every single game in week 10. It's kind of crazy that it's November already, which means that we only have a few precious months of football left until we return to the eternal darkness. So we got that going for us. Last week, I went 9-5. It was definitely not my best week, bringing me to a 93-41 record on the season, giving me the 273rd place in the Pick'em League. However, there is one who towers over all of us, and that is Iron Cam, who is sitting at number 1 in the Pick'em League with a record of 104-29. A big shout out and congratulations to you. You are picking these games a hell of a lot better than I did. I know I was 6 games out of first place last week, and now that number's just getting larger, so that's not great. And so, time to redeem myself. Starting off with Thursday Night Football. You got the Las Vegas Raiders taking on the Denver Broncos. The Raiders, oh boy, they are coming off a heartbreaking loss to the Jacksonville Jaguars, and now they got to face a steady Broncos team on primetime.
We seem to be made to suffer. It's our lot in life.
The Raiders lost by a single point to the Jaguars, in which you had a game that was going back and forth. And by back and forth, I mean you were falling asleep the first through the third quarter. But then the fourth quarter, everything happened. The Raiders wind up tying the game. It goes into overtime. Brock Bowers was absolutely crushing it on Sunday. They desperately missed him in the passing game on that offense, because that offense at times, yeah, it makes me want to poke my eyes out. But they got into overtime. The Jacksonville Jaguars, they returned it about 50 yards on the kickoff. They get a touchdown on 4th and goal. Then the Raiders return it about 50 yards. They get a touchdown. And then they decide to go for 2, and it's batted down at the line. So pretty much a usual Raiders loss. But talking about the Raiders, obviously things have not gone the way they have wanted to this year. Geno Smith, who actually looked good on Sunday, he threw 4 touchdowns. That's a big positive. Maybe he can get better as Brock Bowers remains in that offense. And if they get Ashton Genty going, maybe there is some hope. But yeah, this season definitely has not been fun. They're going to be taking on the Denver Broncos, who just won their 6th straight game. They were able to get a game-winning field goal over the Houston Texans. And what I like about the Broncos is not necessarily their offense, because when they just randomly decide to play in the fourth quarter, but their defense has been really good. And on top of that, they're finding gritty ways to win. The fact that they were able to knock off the Cowboys last week in their best offensive performance all season against a really bad defense, yay, you could see that the offense can score a lot of points. And then to go up against one of the best defenses in the NFL in the Texans, I know that the Texans offense is not good at all, but you talk about the Broncos being able to go and score points, even if it's late in the fourth quarter, against both types of defenses. Yeah, the Broncos right now, they are built to win football games, and that's why they're winning a whole lot of them. And taking a look at this game, like I mentioned, for the Raiders, I like the fact that they have Brock Bowers back. If Geno Smith is not turning the ball over, I think they have a chance to win this game. But the problem is I just don't really trust the Raiders O-line. And on top of that, I just don't really trust the Raiders team right now. And taking a look at the Broncos being played in Denver, yeah, I think the Broncos should be able to win this football game and getting us one step closer to that Broncos and Chiefs showdown. Following that, you got the Atlanta Falcons taking on the Indianapolis Colts. The Falcons, you want to talk about Raiders' ways to lose when you're going for 2 and it gets batted down at the line? The Falcons, who really did not show up for a good chunk of this game on Sunday against the Patriots, they were able to roar on back. They go to tie the game and they miss the extra point. So a true Falcons way to lose that game. And for the Falcons, they have been one of the most inconsistent teams in the NFL. Right now, they are 2 games behind the Panthers in the NFC South. So yeah, things are not going well. When their offense gets the ground game going, they are one of the better teams in the NFL. You look at their defense, their pass rush has gotten better. And unfortunately, they're just not able to put it together week after week after week. And yes, they have had kicking woes. Of course, Young Wei Koo got released from that squad, and Romo is having some struggles right now. But overall, for this Falcons team, they just need to get a rebound win, and I think that's going to be difficult coming against the Colts this week. However, the Colts suffered their second loss this past Sunday against the Pittsburgh Steelers. That Colts offense turned the ball over 6 times, and while they were able to claw their way back into that game, ultimately it was not enough, because it turns out when you turn the ball over 6 times, it's really hard to win football games. Tom Grossi analysis.
Hey guys, for more analysis, make sure you smash that like button and hit subscribe with that notification bell turned on.
However, the Colts made a big splash before the trade deadline, sending over 2 first-round picks and A.D. Mitchell to the Jets to go and get corner Sauce Gardner, which will definitely make that secondary significantly better. And while you do have some questions about Sauce, because he definitely looked better a few years ago, being in a brand new scheme and on top of that, an improved defense from where they were last year, I think a change of scenery is going to be nice, because I don't know who wants to be on the Jets right now. I know Breece Hall doesn't, but the Colts were unable to get anything going in the run game with Jonathan Taylor, and I think that he really is the engine that gets that Colts offense going. And here, it's really going to be a battle of running backs. You're going to have Robinson versus Taylor, which should be super exciting. However, this game is being played in Berlin, and the last time Daniel Jones was in Germany, he lost his job. So I doubt he wants to go back.
You're going the wrong way. We have to get to Berlin.
Half the German army's on our tail, and you want me to go to Berlin? Into the lion's den?
But for me, I don't see the Colts turning the ball over 6 times again, and especially against an inconsistent Falcons team. And so because of that, I am going to lean Indianapolis Colts to get the win here. I think if they're able to get the ground game going, and if they just don't turn the ball over 6 times, they should be able to win this game. Like I said, if you go back a few weeks ago, I picked the Falcons to beat the Buffalo Bills. It just seems that since then, things have gotten really disappointing. So because of that, I'm going with Indianapolis to get the win, and Indiana Jones back in the win column. Following that, you got the Buffalo Bills taking on the Miami Dolphins. The Bills coming away with their biggest win of the season, knocking off the Kansas City Chiefs, as they do during the regular season. Josh Allen was superb on Sunday, but most importantly, and this is why the Bills are climbing up in the power rankings for me, their defense, now a couple weeks in a row, has looked like a completely different unit than what we saw earlier in the season. Not only did they blow out the Carolina Panthers, must be nice, but their defense was getting after Patrick Mahomes nonstop on Sunday, whether they were causing turnovers, whether they were getting sacks, and this is something that has been missing at least consistently from this Bills defense. And now getting a whole bunch of guys back from injury has definitely helped. I know Hoyt is going to be out for the year, which is definitely a loss, but overall for the Bills, I'm pretty high on them right now if that defense can still be playing at a high level, and we know what that offense can do. They're going to be taking on the Miami Dolphins, in which somehow Mike McDaniel may have been able to convince the Dolphins to keep his job until the end of the season.
I just don't want to go home. What's waiting for me at home is really bad.
What's waiting for you at home?
I don't know.
The Dolphins getting blown out by the Baltimore Ravens in that second half of Thursday Night Football, and it has just been an atrocious season for them. And while there definitely have been some bright spots like Devin Achane, I love me some Devin Achane, the defense, which played really well the week prior on Sunday, which you had actually some hope and optimism, they were able to knock off the Falcons the Sunday prior to that Thursday night game, hence why I picked the Colts to beat the Falcons. But unfortunately, they could not keep that consistency going on Thursday. And again, in that first half, it was a really competitive game against the Ravens. Unfortunately, as that game went along, the offense was really bad. Tua had one of his worst games of the season. And yeah, the Dolphins find themselves in a pretty rough place. Now, besides trading with the Eagles, they were not massive sellers during this trade deadline, and it just seems like the Dolphins are just going to ride this season out and see how it goes. Going up against the Buffalo Bills, yeah, even though it's a divisional game and you never know with them, I gotta rock with Buffalo to get the win here. They have looked really strong these past couple of weeks. They just knocked off the Kansas City Chiefs. And the Dolphins, yeah, things are not going well. I don't think they're gonna rebound and magically look good this week. So because of that, I'm going with Buffalo. Then you got the battle of the purple teams as the Baltimore Ravens take on the purple incarnation of Satan, the Minnesota Vikings. The Ravens, as we just talked about, coming off a big win against the Miami Dolphins, in which you saw Lamar Jackson return to the field, and he played pretty darn well. On top of that, they were able to get the run game going a little bit these past few weeks. Derrick Henry is not fumbling the ball. And while that was a close game in the first half, as we mentioned with the Dolphins, the defense was able to do enough and cause some problems, which again, the defense has been a weak point for the Ravens this year. And as long as they're able to play complementary football, they should get back to their winning ways. They're going to be taking on the Minnesota Vikings, who had J.J. McCarthy return last week, and they were able to knock off the Detroit Lions, which means that J.J. McCarthy is undefeated against divisional opponents.
The only possible conclusion is that Happy Gilmore has reached an agreement of some kind with Satan, aka the devil.
But it wasn't just J.J. McCarthy, as the Vikings defense played a superb game on Sunday. They were able to get after Jared Goff multiple times, and on top of that, they prevented any kind of run game whatsoever, and they pulled off the big upset. And for the Vikings, with J.J. McCarthy back into the lineup, this is going to provide you the best glimpse of, hey, is this our franchise guy? The fact that he has 2 divisional wins is definitely going to help, but again, if that defense can stay healthy and Van Ginkel can be that game wrecker, the Vikings, who knows, maybe they're back in contention in that NFC North. This could be a really fun ball game here. Having that Ravens defense go up against that Vikings defense, I think, is the matchup here that everybody wants to see. And I think that this game could go either way. I am going to lean and go the Baltimore Ravens here just because I think that they have a little bit more of a higher powered offense right now. J.J. McCarthy with that Vikings offense, I don't know if the Ravens take a pretty significant lead, if they're going to be able to catch up and get back in that game. So here, if the Ravens are able to run the ball effectively with Derrick Henry, or Lamar Jackson's able to light up that secondary, I got Baltimore here getting the win. And if J.J. McCarthy pulls off another win, who knows? We're going to have to start taking the Vikings seriously. Then, you got the Cleveland Browns taking on the New Jersey Jets. The Browns, their fans got to enjoy a bye week last week in which their team could not hurt them, which is a positive thing. However, they did have to watch Joe Flacco light it up with the Cincinnati Bengals and throw for nearly 500 yards and go, hey, we could probably use a quarterback like that. But good thing for Cleveland, Cincinnati still lost because Bengals are going to bangle. They're going to be taking on the New Jersey Jets, who during this trade deadline basically traded away all their good players, except for Breece Hall, who couldn't get out of there.
No! They expect one of us in the wreckage, brother.
I'm so sorry, Breece. I'm so sorry. But the Jets, yeah, things are not looking too great for the Jets. They are in a full-blown rebuild at this point, not only getting rid of Quinnen Williams, but on top of that, getting rid of Sauce Gardner. And that defense, which was really damn good a few years ago, is just a shell of its former self. On top of that, their offense. Breece Hall has looked good at times this season, especially when they got their first win over the Cincinnati Bengals, and they are coming off a bye. But yeah, you have your own owner who's crapping all over Justin Fields, and they only have 1 win this season. So things are pretty dire. And unfortunately for both these squads, both their seasons are not going well. However, here I gotta go with the Cleveland Browns just because at this point I think they have a more talented roster. Their defense remains pretty damn good. And while that offense definitely has a way to go, I think they're gonna be able to move this ball against this Jets defense now that it's decimated. So because of that, I'm going with Cleveland to get the win. Jets fans, the season's almost over, and then you get to utilize all those draft picks. Let's just hope you draft well. Then you have what could be the game of the week. You got the New England Patriots taking on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. The Patriots, another team that has won 6 games in a row. They are currently sitting at the 2 seed in the AFC conference, and they were able to hold off the Atlanta Falcons, as we mentioned, who missed that extra point on Sunday, and get yet another win. Drake May definitely struggled a bit this past Sunday, and now for the 2nd week in a row, he is also getting clobbered behind that offensive line, but they were able to find a way to win. That Patriots defense has been solid all year, and while they definitely had a better first half than they did did second half, like the Broncos, they are finding ways to win the game. And if we're not crediting the offense or the defense for that win against the Falcons, I think the Patriots may have used the dark side of the Force to make them miss that extra point.
Maybe.
Drake May be a Sith Lord. They're going to be taking on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who are coming off a much-needed and deserved bye week. And for the Buccaneers, the question is, when are folks going to get healthy? Of course, Mike Evans is going to be missing a good amount of time, but Bucky Irving, is he going to be back anytime soon? Also, some return windows have opened for their offensive linemen. And I feel like for the Buccaneers, as they get healthier as the season goes along, I mean, hell, even Baker Mayfield's recovering from some injuries. This is going to be a team that's going to be a problem come January, because right now, yeah, I think they should still be favored to win their division. And this game being played in Tampa, I think this is just going to be a really good matchup. Both defenses are solid. Both offenses can definitely move the football. And while their run games have been lacking as of late, I know you want to see more out of Henderson. And again, Bucky Irving hasn't been around. Both these quarterbacks can sling the freaking ball. The Patriots are definitely the healthier team than the Buccaneers right now. But I don't know, because this is a battle of not only two good teams, this is also a battle of teams that had Tom Brady as their quarterback. And so the winner, obviously, is the rightful heir to Tom Brady's success. So because of that, I'm going to go with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers here to get the win. I think just being played in Tampa is going to make enough of a difference here. On top of that, coming off the bye week and hopefully getting a bit healthier, I like the Buccaneers to get this win, especially as the Patriots started to lose their grip against the Atlanta Falcons late last week. I know there's question marks not only about Bucky Irving, but Chris Godwin if they're going to return. But here, I just think the Buccaneers are going to get back to their winning ways. It's more of a gut feeling. I think this game is going to be a total toss-up. And like I said, I think this could be one of the best matchups of the week. So I'm going to go with the Buccaneers. We'll see if the Patriots can prove me wrong. And if I am wrong, I'm sure I'll get some forced lightning because of it. Then you got an NFC South showdown between the New Orleans Saints and the Carolina Panthers. The Saints, they got beat up by the LA Rams this past Sunday, but the good news is Tyler Shuck, he looked pretty decent. On top of that, he got his first NFL start, and then they traded away Rashid Shaheed.
Your weapons. You will not need them.
I don't think any quarterback's going to ever be healthy again in New Orleans. But the Saints, yeah, they're another team. They are one of the worst teams in the NFL this season. And again, while they aren't the absolute worst, like many were predicting heading into this year, things have still not gone well. On top of that, getting rid of your deep threat in Shaheed, at least they were able to get some good value for him. It seems like they're just going to build that offense around Chris Olave, but they got to get things going. You look at the run game, which definitely needs some rejuvenation. On top of that, they just seem like a team that is desperately in need of an injection of talent. And so they're going to be looking at the draft. They're going to be looking at free agency to try and solve those problems. The issue is that's not until March and April of next year. So until that time, they got to take on the Carolina Panthers, who are coming off a big-time win against the Green Bay mother-loving Packers. Bryce Young did not have his best game on Sunday, barely had over 100 yards, had an interception, but you got to give a ton of credit to that offensive line, which has been shuffling around all year. You got to give credit to that Panthers defense. And the biggest credit has to go to Rico Dowdle, because he played a phenomenal game. He had over 100 yards and 2 touchdowns against the Packers. He was able to set the tone for that game. And even though the Panthers were only able to score 16 points, it was enough to keep the Packers in check and ultimately win that football game. And here, there's a whole lot more optimism going on with the Carolina Panthers. Hell, even podcasters want to come back and cover this team. But here, I think the Panthers have all the momentum here. The Saints, they're going to be having Shuck with his second start, and I don't think that's going to go particularly well. And while I do still have some questions about this Panthers offense, if they stick with Rico and they stop giving it to Hubbard like they did the past couple of weeks, yeah, they should be able to win this game. And the Panthers getting one step closer to the Buccaneers. And watch out, these kitties might have claws. Following that, an AFC South showdown between the Jacksonville Jaguars and the Houston Texans. The Jaguars able to get a 1-point win over the Las Vegas Raiders, and good God, did they make that difficult. But Trevor Lawrence able to get things done in overtime, and ultimately that defense batting down that Geno Smith pass sealed the win for them. And for the Jaguars, it's been a frustrating season to say the least. At times, they've looked like a really good team, like when they were able to knock knock off the Kansas City Chiefs, and other times they make you want to pull your hair out. Travis Hunter is currently injured. However, they made a big-time trade in getting Jacoby Myers from the Raiders, and honestly, I love this move for the Jaguars. With Brian Thomas Jr. having his struggles this season catching the ball, I think bringing in a solidified receiver like Myers, even if it's on a one-year rental, could do some wonders for this offense. And when guys like Travis Etienne are able to get the ball moving on the ground, the Jaguars can be a very formidable team, but we just have to see them put it all together. They're going to be taking on the Houston Texans, and I gotta say, the Strouds are not pleased after losing that one to the Broncos, and CJ Stroud to a concussion. CJ Stroud remains in concussion protocol, so it is likely he is not going to be playing on Sunday against the Jaguars. And I gotta be honest, I still almost picked the Texans. While they did lose to the Denver Broncos, they have one of the best defenses in the league. And while the Jaguars defense has definitely improved from last season, I think that the Texans defense can cause a lot of problems for Jacksonville, especially if they're not able to get things moving on the ground with ETN. Trevor Lawrence might also find himself struggling against that good secondary. On top of that, with this being played in Houston, I think that will give an advantage to the Texans. The thing I can't get over is that it is Davis Mills. And while he was able to almost lead that team to victory against the Denver Broncos, he fell short even though his neck is long, and that gives me pause. And so originally I did pick the Texans and their defense to get the win here. However, I am going to try and put my faith in the Jacksonville Jaguars once again. I don't have a ton of faith and confidence in this team, but I'm going to go with the Jaguars to get the win here. I think their offense is much better than the Texans, and even though they're going up against a better defense, if they're able just to move the ball and the Jaguars are able to get some pressure on Davis Mills behind that terrible O-line, I got the Jaguars getting a close win here. I wouldn't be surprised if the Strouds wind up taking it, but Jaguars, don't let me down. Following that, you got an NFC West showdown with the Arizona Cardinals taking on the Seattle Seahawks. The Cardinals coming away with a big primetime win on Monday night to knock off the Dallas Cowboys. Jacoby Brissett, who's been able to operate that offense the last few weeks, was just named the starter for this Sunday, and it looks like that's how it's going to be going forward. And Kyler Murray might be getting a little restless as Jacoby Brissett is seeing all this action.
What's happening out there?
Shall I describe it to you? Or would you like me to find you a box?
But you got to give a ton of credit to the Cardinals here. They were able to force a few turnover on downs, which were massive in that game. Even on the first drive that the Cowboys were able to move down the field, and on 4th and goal, they made a big stop. But it was really that offense that has been able to move under Jacoby Brissett, which has been the difference maker here. Hell, they went toe-to-toe with the Green Bay Packers as well, and there's been a few teams that they've been taking down to the wire. And unfortunately, they have been losing in the fourth quarter in a lot of those games. But here, they were able to hold off the Cowboys and get a big-time win. I mean, hell, they were even utilizing Marvin Harrison Jr. They remembered he was on the team. So all is well with the Arizona Cardinals. They're going to be taking on the Seattle Seahawks, who are looking phenomenal right now. They were able to stomp the Washington Commanders on Sunday Night Football. So 2 NFC West teams getting big wins in prime time. And for the Seahawks, they look like one of the most balanced teams in the NFL right now. Sam Darnold went on a heater and was perfect in that first half, throwing 4 touchdowns, no incompletions, and while he did throw an interception and a couple incompletions, what a bum in that second half, they were able to get a big-time win over that Commanders squad. And while the Commanders definitely suffered a ton of injuries in that game, this was before Jaden Daniels went out, this Seahawks team had this game well in hand. And you take a look at that defensive front, they have been phenomenal. They have the best run defense in the league right now. Their secondary still getting healthy, but looking at that offense with JSN and Sam Darnold having that connection, they're almost unstoppable. Horton has been really damn good. And on top of that, they just made the trade for Shaheed, so now they have another deep threat. And so taking a look at this game, I think it's going to be competitive. However, being played in Seattle and the momentum that the Seahawks have right now, I can't pick against them. So I have to go with Seattle to get the big-time win here. They're going to continue to roll. Who knows? Maybe they'll get their run game involved this week, but I got to go with Seattle. And for the Cardinals, let's just hope it's not a fourth quarter collapse. Then, yet another NFC West showdown. You got the LA Rams taking on the San Francisco 49ers. The Rams, they were able to take care of business easily enough against the New Orleans Saints last week. Matthew Stafford starting to get into those MVP conversations. Their defense is playing well. Puka Nacua came back and then got injured, but apparently is also going to be fine. Their offense is looking good. Their defense is looking good. And the Rams are starting to get a little bit of attention from the media because they've been putting together some damn good wins. They're going to be taking on the San Francisco 49ers, who somehow, some way, are still getting injured, but are still winning football games. And as long as Mac Jones keeps on following Kyle Shanahan's lead, this 49ers team can keep scoring.
Okay, yo, it's the Mac Attack. What up?
Yo, hi. It's the Mac Attack. What up?
The 49ers once again coming away with the win, this time against the New York Giants, and Christian McCaffrey doing what he does best. Their leading rusher, their leading receiver this past Sunday, and that has been the formula as to how the 49ers can win these football games. When CMC is on, there are very few teams that can stop the 49ers, even though they are beat to hell. Unfortunately, they lost Mykel Williams to the MetLife turf this past Sunday, and the injury list just keeps on getting longer and longer. And I gotta be honest, all of my respect go to the 49ers right now. The fact that coaching staff is still willing this team to a bunch of victories, they deserve a lot of credit. The last time that these two teams faced off, the 49ers were able to get a win in overtime on Thursday Night Football. And taking a look at this game, I think it's going to be another close one. However, I am going to go with the Rams to get some revenge here and even out the series this year. I just think the Rams are a team that has a ton of momentum behind them. I mentioned all the great things that their offense and defense are doing, and going up against a battered 49ers team who I have no doubt will put up a fight. As long as CMC is contained, I think the Rams should be able to get the win. And Matthew Stafford, let's see if he can still be climbing towards that MVP trophy.
Just some of the different competition. I'm combining words now.
Following that, you got the Detroit Lions taking on the Washington Commanders. The Lions, they lost to J.J. McCarthy and the Minnesota Vikings this past Sunday, and their offense did not look good. It's making a whole bunch of Lions fans look at their offensive coordinator, John Morton, and wish that he was Ben Johnson. And unfortunately, as we mentioned when we were talking about the Vikings, they just could not get the ground game going. On top of that, their offensive line didn't look really good. Jared Goff was getting sacked, and overall, it was a very tough day for Detroit. They're going to be taking on the Washington Commanders. When talking about tough days, they had 3 major injuries this past Sunday. Luke McCaffrey broke his collarbone, Marshawn Lattimore with his ACL, and Jaden Daniels, with a horrible-looking dislocated elbow. And they also got their ass kicked by the Seattle Seahawks. And now taking on the Lions this week. Last year when the Commanders beat Detroit, they felt like a new dynasty. This year, not so much.
I'm so dead, I don't know what to do, man.
You're responsible for me on some level. You encouraged me.
I don't know how to help you.
So yeah, it has been tough sledding for the Washington Commanders this year, and considering Jaden Daniels is going to be out indefinitely, it is going to be a tough rest of the season. And heading into this game, I think the Lions are going to have a bounce-back game. The Commanders just don't have the defense, I think, to compete with the Lions like the Vikings did. And on top of that, while Marcus Mariota is definitely a serviceable quarterback, with all the injuries that they have, Jaden Daniels not playing, I just don't see how Washington wins this game. So because of that, I'm going with the Lions to get a win, getting some revenge for the divisional game this past year. And for Commanders fans, at least you don't have Dan Snyder. Then you got a pretty damn good Sunday Night Football matchup between the Pittsburgh Steelers and the LA Chargers. The Steelers, where the hell did that come from? After playing on Sunday Night Football the week prior and getting dominated by the Packers in that second half, the Steelers came out and they forced 6 turnovers against the Indianapolis Colts. Their defense looked incredible. And coming off this great game against Indianapolis, I know TJ Watt is looking at that injured Chargers O-line.
It's Morbin time.
And the problem with the Steelers has been consistency, right? In which the beginning of the year, the defense didn't look so good. Then there was a stretch where they looked pretty solid. And now these past few weeks, they were not looking good after losing to the Bengals and then losing to the Packers. But this past Sunday, everything started to work. Aaron Rodgers was efficient on offense, the defense dominated, and they knocked off the top team in the NFL. The question is going to be, can they do it another week in a row? Because they're still holding on to that AFC North lead, but with the Ravens winning some football games, they are not far behind. They're going to be taking on the LA Chargers, who had a tough game against the Tennessee Titans, though they were able to pull away in the second half, and the Titans do have a solid defense at times. They just don't have an offense to go along with it. And for the Chargers, listen, Justin Herbert, he has been having one hell of a season, especially when he's lost his 2 starting running backs, especially when he's lost his 2 starting offensive linemen. And it just feels like the Chargers are one of those snake-bitten teams when it comes to injuries this year, but they're still finding ways to win football games. And this game, it's going to be a challenge, especially after the Steelers looked so damn good last week. It's just a matter of which team are we going to see on Sunday night, and that's what makes this game so difficult to predict. Is Vidal going to be able to get it going in the run game? Is Warren going to be able to get it going for the Steelers? How good are both defenses going to be? I see this being a complete and total coin flip. One of the major reasons why the Steelers won that game last Sunday was because Jonathan Taylor was really ineffective. If they can stop Vidal, which is definitely possible when he's going up against good defenses, I think the Steelers could win this football game. However, the problem that I have with the Steelers is they're just very hot and cold. If the team that showed up against the Packers in the second half shows up on Sunday night, I think the Chargers can win. However, if that defense, especially that pass rush, is able to get after Justin Herbert and stop the run, I think it's going to be a very long night. And so, after going back and forth nonstop because of the injury to Joe Alt, I'm changing my pick, and I'm going with the Pittsburgh Steelers to get the win. I originally had the Chargers down here, but I'm going to have a little bit of faith saying that Pittsburgh defense could put up another great performance, and if they do against that battered offensive line, because I don't think Trevor Penning is going to be making that much of a difference, I think the Steelers should be able to get a win, and we'll see if they let me down once again. Then... you got the Green Bay mother-loving Packers taking on the Philadelphia Eagles. Well, Tom, what's worse than losing to the Carolina Panthers off a game-winning field goal? Oh yeah, it's playing the reigning defending Super Bowl champs who are coming off a bye week. The Packers. Everything went wrong for them on Sunday. Not only could they not get anything going on offense, on top of that, their defense couldn't get any pressure. Micah Parsons didn't play well. McManus was missing kicks. And oh yeah, Tucker Kraft is out for the year. And I cannot overstate how devastating it is to lose Tucker Kraft for the season.
Give them a moment, for pity's sake.
According to Romeo Dobbs, he's in a better place now. But for the Packers, everything that could have possibly went wrong this past Sunday went wrong. And listen, they didn't score a touchdown until the frackin' fourth quarter. Unfortunately, Jordan Love did not have his best game. He had a really bad interception and almost had a second really bad one. Though he was able to lead his team down the field multiple times, they were just atrocious in the red zone. Savion Williams had a fumble. Josh Jacobs wasn't the most effective that he could possibly be. The offensive line was not blocking. And yeah, this is going to be one hell of a test going up against the Eagles. Because the Eagles, while coming off a bye week, the 2 weeks before that, they looked the best that they have all season. Saquon Barkley was able to run all over the Giants and finally had a great game on the ground. Jalen Hurts has had 2 really nice performances back-to-back, throwing multiple touchdowns. The week before the Giants game, he had over 300 yards. And now heading into Lambeau Field, yeah, this is going to be the Packers' toughest test all season. Now, the thing about the Packers and what's incredibly frustrating is usually when it's against good teams, they rise to the occasion. And when it's against teams that they are expected to beat, they don't. And so, just like the Steelers, which version of the Green Bay Packers are we going to see on Monday night? The Packers were the number 1 seed in the NFC before losing to the Panthers, and now the Eagles have reclaimed that spot. Is the Packers pass rush going to return to form and get some pressure on Jalen Hurts? We know that Micah Parsons knows him very well. And Saquon Barkley. The Packers could not stop Rico Dowdle whatsoever last week. Are they going to be able to stop Saquon, who again only has that one really good game against the Giants so far this year? Is that going to be repeated? undefeated. So this game, I think, could go either way, and I do think that the Eagles should be pretty favored in this matchup, especially after the Packers just lost to Carolina. However, because I'm a homer and I don't pick against the Green Bay mother-loving Packers, I'm gonna pick the Green Bay mother-loving Packers to win this football game. I think the way they're going to be able to win is if they're able to establish the run, which is going to be difficult against this Eagles squad, and they're going to be able to air it out to guys like Christian Watson. However, the Eagles have a really damn good defense, and so that Packers O-line is going to have a tough job in front of them. On top of that, if the Packers defense can get after Hurts, if they can kind of contain Saquon Barkley, I think they have a shot of winning this game. But I'm not going to lie to you, I think it's going to be incredibly difficult, and I would not be surprised at all if Philadelphia is able to get things going on the ground and win this football game. But I'm going to have some optimism in my team. I hope they can get it done. And if not, well, then I'll just be crying for a second week. But let me know what you think down in the comments below. Who do you have winning this week? Oh, God, Packers, please give me some optimism. And plus, it would make all the sense in the world to lose to the Panthers and then beat the Eagles, because what the hell is this season? But let me know. You know, I saw me at TomGrossiComedy.com, and a big shout out and thank you to all the Patreon and YouTube members for supporting this channel. And thank you so much for watching. I'm Tom Grossi. And as always, go Pack, go.